Jonathan wakes in his dragon bed to the sound of knocking on his front door. His head spins as he looks at his wind-up clock to check the time. It's 2:30 p.m. He slept in. He gags on something in the back of his throat and coughs up a blue 4-pronged Lego into the palm of his hand. It's one of Priscilla's earrings. When he staggers out of his bed, he slips on a pile of green Legos. They must have broken off his bed frame when he stumbled into bed the night before. A shooting pain goes up his heel as the corners of the Legos jab into his bare feet. A pain he's grown accustomed to. He staggers downstairs towards the front door, buttoning his slobber-stained orange shirt. He could really use some customers today. Most of his money was blown at the bar last night. If the visitor is a child, he hopes his parents aren't with him. Parents will smell the alcohol on him, and word will get around that the Lego house isn't a safe place for children. When he opens the door, he is so relieved that there aren't any children with parents that he doesn't immediately recognize what he is looking at. Standing on his porch is a woman with red skin. She's in some kind of devil costume. Horns curl out of her short black hair, and a pointed demon tail whips around behind her waist like a dancing serpent. Jonathan balances himself against the door frame and looks into her lime green eyes. She has an explosive look of excitement on her face, smiling so widely that it seems as if it must hurt. The excitement appears to be overwhelming her so much that she's shaking. She opens her mouth to speak but can't seem to find any words. When Jonathan remembers the note from yesterday, he steps back a little. He realizes this odd woman in the odd devil costume must be the same person who left the note. Judging by how excited and nervous she is, Jonathan decides his assumption was correct. She has to be some crazy Lego fan who was dying to meet him and wanted to tour his wonderful Lego house. For a few more minutes, she just stands there with her crazy, murky red lipstick smile. Then she lifts her white tank top and points at her belly. Jonathan didn't notice it before, but the woman's stomach is as swollen as a soccer ball.
"I'm pregnant,"
she finally says, pointing at her belly. Then her eyes moisten with tears, and she lets out a short, nervous laugh. Jonathan looks down at her body. The woman is pregnant. Very, very pregnant. He doesn't think her belly is part of the costume. It looks real. There's even some shifting beneath her skin. But for some reason, this strange woman painted her pregnant belly red to match the rest of her costume. When Jonathan looks back to her eyes, she bites her lip piercing and wipes away her tears. It is as if she has been waiting to tell him this bit of news for a very long time. Jonathan doesn't know what to say to her. He guesses the proper thing to tell somebody would be congratulations. But he is just so bewildered by the woman he can't bring himself to say it. He wonders who the hell gets so emotional over telling a stranger they're pregnant, even if the person is a huge fan of that stranger's Lego creations. But he's heard that pregnant women often have strange mood swings. He decides to leave it at that. Before he can say anything, she lunges at him. She wraps her arms around him so tightly that he can hardly breathe and buries her face into his neck. He doesn't know what to do, so he just hugs her back, resting his chin between her horns. The woman doesn't let go for several minutes, just hugging him with all of her strength and moistening his orange shirt with her tears. He stands there awkwardly, worried about her pregnant belly squishing into his torso. Upon closer examination, he realizes that her costume was brilliantly constructed. Her red paint doesn't rub off her skin as she touches him. It's almost as if she dyed her skin this color. Her horns are firm and securely fastened to her head somehow. And he has no idea how she gets her devil tail to move through the air like that. It must move via remote control. She finally pulls back and looks him in the eyes, wiping away her tears and smiling happily. Not sure what else to do, he says, "So, do you want a tour of the house?"
"Yes,"
she says, raising her eyebrows and clapping her hands together. Jonathan catches a glimpse of her very long black fingernails that appear to be almost razor sharp. and wonders if inviting her into his home is such a good idea. He now wishes it was a mother with her children who had come to his door this morning. A look of amazement brightens her face as the girl in the devil costume enters the house and steps through Jonathan's Lego workshop. Not even children have ever been so happy to see his wonderful creations.
Wow!
The girl says, gazing across the walls and ceiling.
It's so colorful. I've never seen so much color.
She seems more interested in the actual room than his artwork. So Jonathan leads her into his gallery area. Here's all of my greatest creations, Jonathan says. The girl steps casually through the gallery of sculptures, looking at each of the individual pieces briefly, but she doesn't seem as excited to see his art as she was the actual house. That is, until she comes across the devil man in the wheelchair.
Hey, you did one of Uncle Zex's,
she says with a big smile. Jonathan doesn't know who she's referring to. I built it yesterday.
It looks just like him,
she says. Pointing at his library of photo albums on the far wall, he says, and this is my collection of complete works. The girl looks at the albums and nods her head, then looks back at Jonathan and smiles like a bashful teenager. Jonathan pulls one of the albums out and gives it to her to look at. But she just bows at him and puts the album under her arm, as if she thinks he just lent her a book to read some other time. Upstairs is the kitchen, living room, and bedroom, Jonathan says.
Oh, I want to see,
the girl says, returning the photo album to the bookshelf. Are you sure you want to go up the stairs in your condition? Jonathan points at her belly. It's a steep climb.
Yeah,
she says.
I can do it, I'm strong.
Then she flexes a bicep and snarls flirtatiously. Jonathan notices that her canines are incredibly sharp. As they go up the stairs, Jonathan realizes that this costume the girl is wearing is more than just a costume. He thinks she must have gotten body modification surgery to look this way, like the famous reptile man or the cat-faced woman. He's heard of people implanting devil horns in their head. She could have easily done this. Then she might have tattooed her skin red and implanted fangs. He's not sure how she did the tail. It looks like it could be silicone-based, perhaps with robotic components that control its movement. The tail looks like it moves on its own, so perhaps the movements have been programmed. Jonathan doesn't want to ask her about it. The sooner he can get her out of the house, the better. He shows her the second floor. She bends down a little as if scared that she might pierce the ceiling with her horns, and says,
Comfy,
as she points at the couch and chairs in the living room. The furniture has real couch cushions, but the frames are Lego. They really aren't actually very comfortable, but Jonathan has always been proud of his living room display. And this is the kitchen. He points to the other side of the room.
There's no fire,
she says to him as she explores the tiny kitchenette. No, Jonathan says. None of the burners actually work.
I want to see the bedroom again,
she says. Jonathan wonders what she means by again. He assumes she must have seen some of the pictures he's posted online. When they go upstairs, the girl hobbles quickly over to the bed.
It's broke,
she says, pointing at all the little green Lego pieces on the floor. Jonathan brushes them aside with his bare feet. It fell apart last night. I haven't gotten around to fixing it up yet.
Can you make the bed bigger?
She asks. Jonathan shrugs. They're Legos. I can make it any size I want. She smiles joyfully at his words.
Great,
she says. When Jonathan leads her back downstairs to the exit, the girl doesn't leave. She just stands by the open door staring at him.
Now what?
She says. That's it, he responds. That's the tour. It will be $5. He holds his hand out. She looks into the palm of his hand as if expecting there to be some kind of present in it for her. Don't you have any money? he asks. She shakes her head. Jonathan frowns and says, "Fine, whatever. It's on me. Now, if there's nothing else, I'd like to get back to work." He points at the door, but she doesn't budge. He stands there awkwardly for a few minutes. "Time to leave," he says, his patience wearing thin.
Where are we going?
She asks. "We aren't going anywhere," he says. "I'm staying, you're leaving." Her smile slips from her face.
But I'm supposed to move in with you.
"Move in with me." Jonathan takes a step back. The girl is really beginning to scare him. Panic spreads across her face.
Yeah, we have to raise the baby together.
She says. "What?" Jonathan's voice is shaking. He is just as panicked as the girl. He feels as though he's going to throw up at any second.
Yeah,
She says.
I have nowhere else to go.
"That's not my problem. Why don't you move in with the father of your child?"
What are you talking about?
She says, stepping closer and holding her belly.
You're the father of my child.
When she says this, Jonathan doesn't know what to do. He just pauses, then laughs. He thinks this has to be some kind of joke. "Did my brother send you? Is he trying to fuck with me again?" By the look on her face, he can tell she's serious. Her eyes are watering. There's no way she could be playing a game with him. Jonathan decides she has to be some kind of lunatic. "You're crazy," he says. "I can't be the father. I've never had sex with anyone before."
But you had sex with me.
She says.
Almost 9 months ago.
"You have to be confusing me with somebody else."
It was in this very house. I remember it perfectly.
"I've never seen you before in my life," Jonathan says. The girl looks over his shoulder, deep in thought.
Oh yeah,
She says, a look of relief on her face.
I guess you wouldn't remember, would you?
Jonathan wonders what kind of delusion her messed up brain is concocting to explain this lack of memory.
I assumed the memory thief spell didn't work,
She says.
but I guess it did that part right.
"What the hell are you talking about?" She pauses, and then looks at Jonathan with a very serious face and speaks to him in a very serious tone.
I'm a demon.
She says.
A succubus. Or at least I used to be.
The sincerity in her tone makes Jonathan want to both laugh out loud and run away screaming at the same time, but he holds back having any reaction at all. She continues.
Last year, I came to your bedroom one night during the month you called July. I had sex with you, but I messed up and got pregnant.
Then the devil girl pats her belly at him. Jonathan wants to just run away from this schizophrenic woman and call the police to take her off to the nut house. But he can't seem to get himself to do anything but stand there and listen.
You don't remember right now,
She says.
But you agreed to raise the baby with me if I ended up pregnant. I thought you knew that's what had happened when you saw me at your door.
After that, Jonathan has finally had enough. "This is bullshit," he says, shaking his head. "Look, you need help. If you want, I can bring you to a hospital where you can get the help you need. I know you think this story is true, but you're not really a demon. You just had surgery to look like one."
No, it's true.
She says.
If you let me reverse the spell, you'll get your memory back.
"No, I'm done with this," Jonathan says.
You have to.
She cries, looking down at her feet with tears flooding her eyes. Jonathan sees an opening and goes for the door, but she moves quickly. With the speed of a cat-like predator, she leaps at Jonathan and grabs him by the arms, holding him into place with tremendous strength. She pulls his face into her chest, and he squirms as teardrops spray his cheeks and forehead.
Just let me do the ritual and you'll know I'm telling the truth.
She cries.
We're supposed to be together. You said so.
Jonathan struggles in her grip. Let go of me, you psycho! Although he struggles with much of his strength, he is careful not to hurt the baby inside of her. It's not the baby's fault the mother is a freak. If he kicks and punches, he'd probably be able to get away, but he doesn't want to accidentally cause a miscarriage.
The only way I can prove it to you is if you get your memory back,
she says.
Just let me try the ritual. If you don't remember, I will leave and never come back. I promise.
Just let me go, Jonathan says. I won't tell the police if you just let go of me.
But you're the father. You have to remember you're the father.
Then her eyes light up.
Wait a minute,
she says.
I can prove that we had sex together.
Jonathan continues struggling, but she calms down quite a bit and even loosens her grip a little.
You have my mark,
she says, then looks down at his crotch.
On your penis.
Jonathan stops struggling.
Your penis turned black inside of me,
she says.
Like dipping pen in a vial of ink. Your purity was stained by darkness when you lost your virginity to a succubus. Normally the skin would only appear black when soaked in holy water, but I messed up the ritual so the blackness remained visible.
Jonathan looks at her, wondering how the heck she knew about his black penis. He wonders if she was the one who did this to him in his sleep all those months ago, just so that she could back up her crazy story. For a second, he even wonders if this woman is telling the truth. He wonders if she really is a succubus from hell who raped him in his sleep.
Even if you don't remember our encounter, you have wondered why your penis turned black overnight,
she says.
Just let me perform the ritual and I'll give you back what you have forgotten.
She lets him go, and he straightens himself up, rubbing out the wrinkles in his orange shirt.
So you let me perform the ritual?
She asks.
Please?
Jonathan takes a deep breath and then nods.